Yeah, well, this is the water.
All through agua.
Get ready to flow. There we go, there we go.
It's all about flooding the street. Keep it flooded.
When you see we back come down, blowing all over the town. We join up like a wassail. Full pressure when we start to whine. Give it up. So when you feel like chipping, get in the line. Then it turn off the engine and you can rewind. Start to move it slow like water. Cause this is a creeper. Hold on your fella and hold on your daughter. When you see we back come down, blowing all over the town. We join up like a wassail.
You know, most people are aware of the Carnival Festival that occurs on the island of Trinidad and Tobago every year. If you're not, it happens between the month of February or March. If you haven't experienced it as yet, take my advice. You should. It's days of constant partying, and it's something that you should see. That same format before the actual carnival event has been copied on a smaller scale to occur in Brooklyn, Miami, Boston, Canada, and now Pennsylvania. Over the years, the Labor Day parade in Brooklyn, unlike the other cities, have grown tremendously close to what happens in Trinidad. You've got the Friday night brass bands, the Kiddies Carnival on Saturday, Pan playing Saturday night, competition of the costumes on Sunday night, and Juve, which takes place in the wee hours of the morning before the actual event on Monday. We have the honors of other islands participating now, making it the Caribbean Day Parade, but we'd like to share with you what it was like in the beginning. Joining me today is designer Mel Simon of Simon Duncan's Collection, photographer Anthony Benier, and mass cam coordinator for Sesame Flyers, Mr. Patrick Alexander. Sesame Flyers, by the way, is one of the larger bands on Eastern Parkway to date. Come sit with us for a few minutes and find out how this festive art on the streets of Brooklyn originated. Mel, I don't know if you're aware of this, but my first experience on the Parkway, participating in the festival was actually in 1975, which I believe you said you started at that time displaying your work, right?
Yes.
Okay. You want to tell us a little more about your experience and what it was like back then?
Well, what I did that year was actually do a section in Mood Seal Orchestra. They were the it band of the time, so I wanted to get my foot wet with a it band. So it was Moods. They did an Africa mass, and I did a safari section.
I remember that. I had a lot of fun
which was
in that
all
band.
khaki and stuff like that.
Now, the Savage Mass, this is going like you went on consecutively from 75 through like 80, let's say 88. You started with the Savage Mass. It was really going out of control. You indicated that you were the first to do the live band.
Well, in 88, we did Savage. That year we played Savage.
That was nice.
And our music was by Carl and Carol with Ronnie McIntosh. And I said to you, we were one of the first bands who used live music on the Parkway. I could be wrong, but from my recollection, I know none of the bands at the time, Hawks or Barrowkeet, who was the main bands then, didn't have live music.
They were doing the live music, yeah.
But definitely after we did it, and they saw this new organization, this small organization, bringing a band from Trinidad, it sort of showed them up. So the next year, bands like Hawks and Barrowkeet, they step up to the table and they start doing live music too.
Oh, okay. And you did the Mermaid, I remember that too, with the sound revolution and stuff. Right. Good stuff, good stuff. I was a child at the time, but I do remember back in 1972 going to the Lincoln Terrace Park. For those of you who are not familiar with this park, it's located on Eastern Parkway and Buffalo Avenue in Brooklyn. It was on a small amount of bands, but lots of people. And what I remembered of this event was being able to see my cousins for the first time in New York. They had come down from Harlem. I had always thought that that was the first instance of the parade, and then I sat with Miss Angela Seeley of the West Indian American Day Carnival Association and learned that this thing actually went way back in the 60s. She indicated that it started with a gentleman by the name of Jesse Waddell in Harlem. It took place going down 7th Avenue. It apparently stopped in Harlem in 61 and started in Brooklyn in 62. At that time, a Mr. Rufus Gorin was running it. Get this, the route was Atlantic Avenue. The route for the parade was Atlantic Avenue. Can you imagine that? And it's ending in an area called Prospect Hall. In 72, Prospect Park was the final destination as opposed to Lincoln Terrace. So they would go down Eastern Parkway and stop in Prospect Park. The other names of the originators at that time was Mervyn Johnson, Fuzzy Davis, and Morris Stewart, which were all back in the early 60s and 70s. And of course, Mr. Lazama, who is now deceased, and things are being coordinated by his daughter Yolanda Lazama, and members such as Miss Briding and Angela Seeley. Now, coming back to you guys, Anthony, we met around the time of about 87, and then we interacted a little time after that with Francis Hendy's show. I was doing a fashion show for him. I remember you talking about like year after year. I'm going to the museum. The thing is, when I left Trinidad, I remember the guys doing the pan and stuff. They would prepare for the, the pan. They would tune the pans up for the carnival event. I saw it, but I never really had a taste for the like steel band, which is very bad, a Trinidadian saying that. But I didn't have a taste for it, and so when you would talk about it, I was never interested. But I remember you year after year talking about the museum. So you want to tell us, like, elaborate a little more on that and exactly what went on in the back there around that time?
Well, with the museum, Saturday night is really panorama. But as you know, I took an interest in documenting the carnival masqueraders. And I can recall as a very young boy, my parents would take me to the city to see carnival. Carnival
in Port of Spain, you mean?
In Port of Spain. Carnival is in my blood, really. It's in the family. But I also remember asking a question to my parents as to why it is that these exquisite and beautiful costumes, right, were not really preserved or being shown
They would
in
leave
the
it on
museum.
the streets. Yeah.
Right. But, I migrated to the United States in 1969, got involved in photography. In 1972, I started working with this photographic company. And 1974, I lived in Manhattan. And I came to the parade for the first time, and I saw the same thing occurring.
The same concept happening. What year was that?
Which is 1974.
Okay.
The discarding of the costumes.
And those things are expensive. It's like, what, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000?
Yeah, and the garbage thing. So I made a commitment as a photographer to preserve and conserve this carnival culture. And so I have a very extensive collection of carnival images from 1974 to 1994.
Wow.
Now, one of the things that was interesting, myself and Mel were talking a little earlier about the standards of carnival. I saw my father cried once in his life. He played with Saldana. His historical mass. And he went to the mass camp, and his friends had taken his leather shoes and was bringing it to him. So when he got to the mass camp, his shoes was not there.
See, that's
My father
that's a big
came
deal,
back home
yeah.
and cried
Yeah.
like a little boy
can
because
respond
he
to that.
knew he could not go in that band
Part was missing.
without that shoes.
Yeah, and people fail to realize Trinidadians take the carnival. I mean, most of these guys are designers. Mel, Patrick Alexander, they're designers, so they take this stuff very, very seriously.
I would just like to mention, though, that there's an opportunity for people to see some of these carnival images because I got funded for this carnival project.
Where is it?
It will happen at the Skylight Gallery, which is on New York Avenue and Fulton Street.
Okay.
And that will
Okay,
that will
make a
take
note of
place October, November, December, and January.
Okay, okay. You know, we have a few large bands on Eastern Parkway to date. We've got Hawks, Borokeets, Sesame Flyers. I wasn't able to get to all of them, but we do have with us one of Sesame Flyers, Patrick Alexander. He's one of the mass camp coordinators at Sesame Flyers. Patrick, you know, I went and I met with Raymond Luke, that's the chairman, right?
Chairman, yeah.
I saw him last year. Didn't get much stuff in details, but I did hold down your executive director, Curtis Nelson.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because I thought that the Sesame Flyers was actually the same time of that whole era of the band starting in 72. And it didn't happen like that for you guys. You guys actually started like 83 and you were focusing on kiddies, cultural stuff for the
Yes.
kids. You want to tell us a little bit about that?
Well, our organization is based in East Flatbush. We're a non-profit, and our idea was to bring a little bit of the culture to kids of West Indian parentage. So we started off actually doing just kids band.
Oh, okay.
Being a non-profit organization, it